It appears that Patrick Clark is waving off the Burkharts. That is very much so unlike the Dream Patrick Clark. Nonetheless, that seems to be what Patrick Clark is doing. Although I gotta admit, there's no doubt in my mind that Clark has another plan in mind, especially against a former Rage TV and champion and Shamrock Cup winner, Mr. Excellence himself, Brandon Scott. There is a clear height advantage between these two. And it's a back and forth trade of disrespectful slaps. And now these two tie up collar and elbow. Brandon driving Patrick Clark into the corner. Referee Justin Rogers forcing the separation due to the rope break. It's about getting a feel for each other in the early ongoings of this match. And then you find the weaknesses in your opponent just by getting a feel for them at the beginning. And Brandon Scott gets the first major takedown. Shoulder tackle, and down went Patrick Clark. It appears to be Patrick Clark was backing off for that split moment. However, Brandon Scott finds him right back in control with a side headlock as Patrick Clark is trying to break free and tried to and did, only to be taken down as the offense continues to pick up by Brandon Scott. Brandon Scott. While Brandon Scott has his own accolades, you got to look at it this way. Patrick Clark, former NXT North American champion. Patrick Clark knows what it's like to play in the big leagues. And that's the big difference between Patrick Clark and Brandon Scott. Oh, and a potential backslide coming through. It's Brandon Scott who wins the backslide battle, but drops it right into an arm drag, only to lay out Patrick Clark with a drop kick. And Patrick is stunned and gets sent over the top to the outside. With Patrick Clark on the outside on the floor. Wait a minute. Brandon Scott gonna go. However, wise is Patrick Clark using all the tricks in the playbook. Using the ring skirt to trap Brandon Scott. And now it's Patrick Clark who gets back into the ring first. How is Brandon Scott going to be able to outsmart Patrick Clark? Patrick Clark isn't afraid to play dirty, isn't afraid to just do that extra little dirty trick that becomes the major difference maker in matches like these. However, can the same be said about Brandon Scott? Is Brandon Scott going to go that quote unquote extra mile? Pull out that extra little trick up the proverbial sleeve? Patrick Clark spent a little bit too much time talking trash, and it allowed Brandon Scott to get the boot up and start getting the offense with some clubbing fists to the face. And a knee right to the midsection. And body slam. Down goes Mr. Excellence. And up is Patrick Clark. Patrick Clark saying he's going to slam him again. Really soaking in and just trying to just soak and bathe in his own excellence, if you will, or what he perceives to be his own excellence. Patrick wasted a little bit too much time showboating as Brandon Scott lays out on a flattened Patrick Clark for that split second. Nobody home. Face first, Patrick Clark in the middle turnbuckle, but quickly recovers. Patrick's height advantage used against him in that very moment as Brandon Scott tried to stack up Clark for the cover, returning to the sleeper, more so a chokehold. Brandon could be out. However, referee Justin Rogers is saying it's a no. He's not out yet. Brandon Scott has not seen the fade to black. When everything turns dim and life looks grim. However, he broke free. But again, Patrick Clark returns right back. Each time Brandon Scott tries to break this submission hold, Patrick is able to build himself back up and return right to the submission. However, this time, Brandon Scott able to sweep through with a backdrop suplex, laying out Patrick Clark. With both men down and out, both men are feeling the wear and tear. Who is going to get the upper hand? Brandon Scott back up first. And Patrick Clark on the receiving end of the first couple takedowns. Oh, and a shot to the midsection. Looking for sliced bread. And he got it to put away Patrick Clark. But not enough to put down Clark. Your Excellency is starting to shine. Can he? Oh, was thinking that cutter. Back elbow. And the cutter. Wait. The Brandon cutter, but the Burkharts. The Burkharts. Of course they're back out. They're here for the dream. Patrick Clark. They saw trouble was near for their leader. Oh, lifting up. Death Valley Driver to put away Brandon Scott, who survives. Patrick Clark is looking to put the final nail in the coffin. Purple Rainmaker could be coming. Patrick having a hard time keeping his balance. His body's experienced too much wear in this matchup, and his leg gets kicked out from under him. And a shot and double knees. Patrick's inability to keep himself stable may have just cost him. Crossface set of the ring. Patrick could be in the danger zone. Could be forced to submit. Will Patrick be forced to tap out? Trying to crank it deep. The Burkharts watching on closely, anxiously. Kelly, Richie, now both step up on the apron. Patrick's tapping, but referee Justin Rogers being distracted by Richie Burkhart. Brandon Scott, furious, goes to to take a shot at Richie, then at Kelly. And when the ref isn't looking, Mr. Excellence gets hit, and the little Mr. Excellences, and a stack up. And just like that, the plan that played out for Patrick Clark, with the help of the Burkharts, is victorious.